This is Express Training Bites. I am Brandon Petrich. With me today is an industry rock star, an industry trend researcher, Vicki Ostrom, and she is going to be talking to us about connections and using the value shift. So I'm going to turn it over to Vicki. Vicki, take it away.
Hey, Brandon. Thank you for having me on today. I'm excited. I'm talking about the newest things that I'm working on. A lot of you know I work for Sanmar. I do trend editing for them, and the latest trend presentation that I'm working on right now is all about this concept. So I'm just like deep in the research phase, and so it's really exciting to talk about this because it's just all you know, there's a lot of things on all of our minds, and we're all looking for ways as businesses to figure out what do we do and what's the future look like, and how do I make good business strategies. And so the thing that we hear a lot about is how can I future proof my brand, and really that's just a fancy way to say how do I look into the future to figure out what's going to happen so that I can prepare for that. And one of the things that I came across that has been really, really instrumental in my thinking process is on WGSN, which is one of the bigger trend websites, services that there is. They had this whole white paper about this idea of a value shift that consumers are participating in right now. And honestly, a lot of these things have been going on a long time. We've been, thinking about these things and preparing for these new ways that we're thinking about things for a while. And one thing they talked about at the beginning of this value shift white paper is resilience planning. And I just loved that word resilience. I think it's like the word optimistic. We are wanting to be optimistic as people, no matter how bad things get or how much anxiety we have. We really want to be optimistic about the future. And so I love this idea of resilience planning. And so what they're talking about with the value shifts is just understanding these ways that we're reevaluating what our values are as people, what's important to us. That's the basic part of it. What's important to us as humans. And now that we've been in lockdown for 7-8 months here, we've had a lot of time to think about it and really put into concrete thoughts and actions the things that we've been kind of having in the background for the last couple of years and been toying around with and playing with when we had weekend time and whatnot. But now it's like, okay, I needed to rethink this and figure things out. And so what they were talking about are 5 key drivers. And I'm not going to talk about all of them today, but basically they're talking about the financial anxieties that we all have and how that's relating to a shift in the way that we think about what we buy. Like what are the key tenets of the things that we buy, and why would we make the choices that we make? We're also very concerned about our health. So thinking about the value of our well-being. What is the wellness component? Not just a nice to have, oh, I'd like to be a little thinner, or I'd like to be a little healthier. I'd like to run a 5K sometime, or, a marathon. Now people are like, oh, health is related to me beating the coronavirus if I get it, or anything else that could come in the future. And, I really want that. So rethinking our health has been a value that we're reconsidering. And also just this thing that's been out there about loneliness. We're really considering the loneliness factor that a lot of people have. A lot of us have been doing jobs that are increasingly online, but maybe we're not as expressive as we actually have been in the last 6 months since we've been more or less inside doing Zoom calls. In a lot of ways, the technology that has allowed our lives to happen in the last 7 months is actually the technology that was really crushing us a lot in the past, and making us feel more lonely and more alienated from each other. So it's an interesting dichotomy that the technology that's giving us life now actually has been quite a problem. And so we're really addressing those loneliness issues as we've been, going through all of this. And we also have really been reevaluating trust. So trust is a value that we're rethinking, and that's related to the buying and what kinds of things that we're buying, because we want to feel like we can trust the companies much more than we had in the past. Like it was a nice to have in the past. Like I'd like to think that they're a good company, but now we're like, no, I maybe have less money, or I want to be really, really cautious about the money I have. So every single purchase I make, I want to make sure that the company I buy it from is trustworthy. Is it going to be a good product? Is it going to be a product that's going to have longevity? Are they doing good in the world? So all these things are in our mind. So trust is a big value that we're reconsidering. And then finally, fears about safety. We're really thinking about, what do I need to feel safe? What are the components of my life that go into feeling secure, feeling comforted, feeling safe, whether it's in my home, or whether it's in my neighborhood, or whether it's in the globe. We are really considering safety in a big, big way. And so you're seeing shifts, like people are moving from the city to the suburbs, partly in a way because they want to control their surroundings more. They want to find ways that they can feel safe by actually knowing their neighbors, by actually feeling like the person next door is going to have my back, um, and getting more in touch with the neighborhood that they live in, and the business down the street, and feeling like if they know the person down the street and the business down the street, then they can maintain that structure of life around them. And so that is a safety element that people are seeking, is this control of what's around them. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be in a suburb to do that. I mean, there's a lot of this going on in the urban world as well. But as a symptom of the fact that we all could use a little bit more space because we're at home all the time, and we have kids that we're teaching, and we have two people maybe in a household that are doing jobs from home, we just kind of need more space. And so we're looking for that in places that maybe are less urban and more in the suburbs, or rural areas, or somewhere that a lot of people are moving back to where they grew up, because they can be also near their family and do their jobs. So there's a lot of reasons that people are moving, but partly it's because we want to control the space that's around us to whatever degree we can. So with all of that in mind, I've actually made an interactive, I've brought the world phygital to us. So I have a digital, we're talking digitally, but I instead of doing a PowerPoint to show you ideas, I actually, I have made us a letter board, Brandon. So I'll show you the word that has come up for me over and over and over again to really bring all of these ideas together. It's something easy that we can all think about. You ready? You ready for the great reveal?
I am.
The word that we should all pay attention to, because you need a simple way to go about. Okay, you're like, okay, the value shift. So we're reevaluating our trust and our safety and our health and our financial anxiety, and what do we buy? But what does it all come down to? How can I grab onto it? So the idea, the word that keeps coming up is connection. Connection's the word. And I wanted to make it for you on my letterboard that I got from WLC, from the Women's Leadership Conference in 2019. I just love this thing. I actually I have another one I'm using today too, and I almost didn't even use this one because I have it on the wall and it said, some inspirational thing on it, and I was like, I just don't even want to take it off the wall, but I'm like, I have to, because this is, this is what we do, is promo. And so, that's the point, is that this is really, really important to me. And it's not just this reader board. I mean, I have another one, but I love this one because it's from that memory of that place and those people and that time. And it's connecting me to them. And that's really important to us. So I'm going to actually hang this on the wall behind me. So can you see that there still?
Yep.
All right.
Absolutely.
So, so I have another word for you. And I'm going to see if you know this word. Have you heard of hipsteading? Do you know that word? Hipsteading?
I live in Austin, Texas, so just about everything is a hip something. So, but I have not heard of that.
Well, I hadn't either actually until, working through this research. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so cool. I knew the word hipsteading now, And then I was doing more research and I'm like, oh, this has like been around as a word since like 2013 or something like that. I'm like, where have I been? How did I not know this? But the, these are things that are on my mind. So we have another reader board. So Cottage Core is something that I've been talking about for a while. Just, in the last couple months, it's been something that I've become aware of. And again, that's something that's been going on for a while too. But Cottage Core and hipsteading are kind of related, as are DIY, which we all have heard of, do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is create it yourself. I really love that term, which was new to me. I hadn't heard of that until recently. And I just thought that was, even more true right now. It's not just, I want to just do it. I want to actually create it myself. So Cottage Core is something that Gen Z women, so younger age group women, teens, early 20s, have really been making popular, and it's been largely an Instagram world, some Tumblr as well, but it's living life in a more easy way, a slowed down way. A lot of the imagery is walking in the woods and, wearing a beautiful calico dress. Maybe not you, but this is what the young women are doing. And, kind of imbuing this lifestyle that maybe Laura Ingalls Wilder had on Little House on the Prairie, and but only the good parts, all the idyllic parts, thinking of like you're living in the Shire, in world of hobbits, and somewhere that's just kinder and slower and gentler and quieter and somehow more controllable, and significantly a lot of it is out of doors, because that just brings our anxiety down when we're outside. And so it's this world that's very bucolic and friendly. And like I say, a lot of the imagery is women, girls wearing calico dresses and, floral and eyelet and chintz and, things that are just very soft and floral. And we are seeing that come into fashion in a major way. I mean, there's, all kinds of levels of women's brands that are carrying things that have these soft florals, very Laura Ashley. I mean, Laura Ashley just did a collab with Urban Outfitters last year and did a whole line of dresses. I mean, Laura Ashley is a designer from the 80s and 90s, that was like massively popular. Jessica McClintock dresses are selling on Etsy and on, the Real and, various platforms that do resell. Just very huge market for those. So if you have anyone, pull them out of your closet and, take a vacation on the money. So, but even H&M they have a home component of H&M, and they're selling beautiful, chintz bedding and drapery and eyelet things, so these are the ways that those idyllic Instagram posts are becoming real product, that people are selling. So if you're doing a stationery or some kind of a paper product or something like, or a home interior product, think about looking into Cottage Core. And I mean, Taylor Swift with Folklore, her latest album drop, is entirely cottage core in aesthetic, you know, so she's getting it for sure. And her online um, store for Folklore has things like, you know, a cable sweater in ivory that's just like super cozy and something you'd wear, you know, sitting by a fire, you know, holding your cup of tea or something, you know. So hipsteading, back to hipsteading, that is maybe a little bit older age group, people who are millennials, Gen Zers, you know, even boomers that are like literally getting back to the land, whether you actually have your land as a couple of pots of plants on your deck, you know, or if you actually have a yard now, maybe you bought that house in the suburbs and you actually have a yard and you're making a garden. I mean, Michelle Obama taught us all how to garden, you know, when she was in, you know, the first lady. And so it really sparked a lot of people's imagination. And there's a lot of people who want to become farmers and they want to have chickens in their backyard now. And now with the pandemic, it's like, oh my gosh, you know, well, maybe this is actually a really good idea, that I should actually have a couple chickens, that at least I have eggs. And, you know, growing their own plants and vegetables so that you can at least have those, and canning. I mean, you can't buy canning good supplies anymore because everybody's canning. So it's about self-sufficiency. Hipsteading is really a term that you can equate with self-sufficiency. And this is my first quiz question for you. You ready?
I'm ready.
So according to Bloomberg News, they did a poll of 2,200, or a survey with 2,200 Americans, and in late June. And what percentage of people do you think said that they would continue doing things like that are more self-sufficient, like, you know, even doing their own manicures? That could include stuff like that, or growing their own food, or, you know, a lot of things that we're doing now because we have to. But they asked, you know, will you really be doing this when we're out of the pandemic and everything's kind of back to whatever normal is again? Well, how many do you think said it?
I'm going to say it's going to actually be a lower percentage than I would go and venture to say like the 15 to 20% range said they would still do it. But I feel like the majority of people are going to go right back to what it was.
To what they were.
Yeah.
Well, according to the 22 people that they.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. I really do think this is here to stay. I think that there's a certain component of this. I mean, yes, when we can get back and, you know, have someone else pamper us for a minute, it will feel good. But I think there's definitely a real pride that people are having in the fact that they actually can do a lot of this stuff themselves. And so when you talk about hipsteading, another component of this article from Bloomberg News about hipsteading was really, really interesting, because this is what we care about, you know, because we're business owners. So what do I do with that information? And so they were saying, okay, so let me tell you what the global impact is economically from the hipsteading movement. And so home improvement, huge. Gardening, crafts, kitchenware. These are the numbers from what has been spent on it so far this year.
Wow.
600 billion in home improvements. I mean, Lowe's, Home Depot, they're having a good year. Gardening, $576 billion in gardening.
My apartment, my girlfriend loves plants. I never really understood them. I thought they were always hard to take care of. And,
yeah,
you know, and rosemary and all the herbs and spice. We have hanging gardens in our kitchen now. Yeah. Our patio out on this side is completely covered in plants. We're growing things constantly. We love it. It's kind of, instead of sitting down and binge watching something, we take an hour and a half and go trim up all of our plants.
Yeah. Water and take dead heads and everything. Yeah. Crafts, 526. So
Yeah.
they called it handicrafts, but you know, it takes a lot of letters to do that. So I just put crafts. And then kitchen goods, you know, $59 billion. A lot of people are cooking for themselves. A lot of really uh, better ingredients are being purchased. So anyone who sells food, you know, put a beautiful packaging that looks really like something special is, you know, what you're getting. And people are actually buying those restaurant quality ingredients because they're making restaurant quality food at home. And a lot of people are saying, you know, that they will continue making that food at home even after. Um, and the home goods industry, you know, I'm really interested. I don't think in the promo world we cover home as much as we should or could, you know, considering these numbers and where, you know, how we're living, because the movement toward you know, renovating our homes is big. And we're literally making changes to the homes that we live in that will be permanent, you know, in order to just really make it work more efficiently for us. I think the days of everyone working 5 days a week at an office are gone, because we've all realized, you know, we can work from home sometimes, maybe even all the time. And so how do I make my home office as comfortable as it can be and efficient? How can my home be my sanctuary?
I love that. Your home, your sanctuary, because I think we, for a long time there, getting really close to 2020 before everything went nuts, it it started feeling like a home was just a place you stored your things, but
Right.
you lived life everywhere else. And I love the fact that we're going back to home is where your heart is, and now that's your heart should be comfortable at home instead of, you know, oh man, I wish I could go out to the bar. I can't tell you how many times I said that in the first 3 months of quarantine. I was
Yeah.
like, I wish I could go to the bar. And then
Yeah.
I realized, oh wait, I can go buy a really nice bottle of wine and make some really awesome food, spend time with my girlfriend, find new music by telling Alexa to play something nice for me,
Yeah.
and have that entire experience at home.
Yeah.
That's
And
cool.
not have to worry if you can drive home or not, because you're already home. And you know, the bottle of wine that you bought, you know, you would have spent the whole, you know, like what you spent on that at a restaurant, you've just spent, you know, on being at home. Like the
Yep.
whole meal cost what the wine bottle would have cost at the restaurant.
Yep.
You know, so it is an important thing as people in the food service to realize too, because goodness, this is not good. You know, I mean, our restaurants are our community, and they're so important to a neighborhood, and it is really a big deal. But I think that there's going to be some reckoning. I mean, you know, people will go back to restaurants, absolutely, absolutely. But I think there's also going to be siphoned off a portion where people are going to still eat at home. Or like there was just this article in the New York Times yesterday about how eating outside and, you know, restaurants being, you know, moving outside is something that's going to continue. People actually like it, and it will continue even after, you know, the restrictions are lifted. So this shift is going to be permanent in certain ways, and it's not bad. It's just a matter of, you know, adjusting and adapting to it with our businesses. So
I love it. Yeah, and that value shift can, and if you can move with it, and I think that's what a lot of us have learned during this pandemic, is you have to be nimble. You have to be able to change, to redirect, to focus on your business, because going back to normal isn't going to mean you're going back to being successful. You know, that could be a bad way of thinking. So understanding how people shifts move, like what, at the beginning of 2019, didn't everybody think fidget spinners were the best thing in the world?
Yeah, to solve our anxiety. And now we're doing other things to solve anxiety. You know,
Yep.
we're taking on meditation, and we're changing the color of our house, you know, the walls in our house. Like, those are our fidget spinners now, you know, is much more productive and long lasting.
Love
Um,
it.
it, Go
We
ahead.
have a comment here
Yeah.
on Facebook from Jay Bassell, and I think you're you
Yeah.
know Mr. J. I
Yeah.
love doing a show with him and Jeff as well. But he commented here on the Facebook deal: 3 words, 1 question. What is trending? Cottage core and hip steading. I still can't say it. Hip
Hipsteading.
steading.
I know it's hard. It's hard. Hipsteading. That's it. That's, you got to, if you know those 2 things, there's a lot of product that you can produce, you know, for people that will be making them very happy. You know, we just covered gardening, you know, all those kinds of tools and special things for gardening. And I think the thing that's important to know is that because of this value shift with financial anxieties, people are spending less money, but they're buying better product. So if you're going to put together a little kit of gardening tools for even, you know, working on your balcony and your, you know, home garden on your deck, they can be nicer pieces. They can be a little bit probably even higher uh, price, you know, because the value is, but the value is expected to be good, you know,
Mhm.
and people really are holding you to that now. Um, but they will spend the money on it. And uh, in fact, I thought it was interesting yesterday on NPR. I was listening in the afternoon, and Marketplace show came up, and I love that show. And you know, they're talking about all the financials of the world and everything. And he interviewed this guy who wrote an article for Art News, and it was about the surprising power of color to ease quarantine anxiety. So even Marketplace, which is about financial things, was interviewing someone who was writing about the way we're redesigning our homes and how color is such an important part of that. And something I thought was really interesting, which you were just saying about, you know, how at first we were all like, oh, well, you know, I'm not used to being home. I haven't been home for years. You know, I just
Mhm.
like, this is where I just store my suitcase. They were saying that interior designers are busy as, you know, can be, and they're a lot of times redesigning bedrooms to make them look like hotel rooms. And they're doing the big headboards, and they're doing drawers on either side of the bed with that people really want to have a USB port and a phone charging port in the drawer, just like you'd have at a hotel. They want recessed lighting. You know, they want to like have their own little bubble of, you know, a world that they understand and that's calming. And you know, this was great about going to a hotel is that you're like, oh, I don't have any of my stuff around. It's just a beautiful calming space that's like beautiful lighting, and the color of the walls is soothing. And um you know, and they were saying that blues and greens were the most popular paint colors right
Mm.
now, that the shift of what colors were trending completely changed on a dime in March. Like 90% less sales on colors that were absolutely the most important colors in wall paint before, and then after March it was a completely different set. And blues and greens were 2 of the colors that are the most important. And when you look at chromotherapy, and that study of color and what each color means to you, blue is trust, blue is calming, and green is brings harmony. So green is it's plants, and we
Mhm.
want to bring the outside in.
Mhm.
So you're seeing that in those paint choices. And we're bringing plants in as much as possible too. And
Mhm.
then there is a trend also, they were saying, toward wallpaper and peel and stick wallpaper, because it's easy and you can move it around, especially if you're in an apartment. You know, it's not permanent,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not a big commitment, you know. And we are sort of in a transitory period right now. We must live like this right now. We don't know 100% if we're going to keep living like this. So, but right now and for the foreseeable future, we're here. So that really made a lot of sense to me to do the peel and stick wallpaper. And the reason it came to my mind just now is because we're talking about bringing plants in. When I went to some of the sites that were selling this wallpaper, they had like a beautiful kind of like ivory color, but then it looked like ivy was trailing down. So it was like basically a huge mural for your room, and it looked like you were in a like walking into a secret garden, you know.
Oh,
So yeah, it's an interesting article. It's called "The Surprising Power of Color to Ease Quarantine Anxiety," and it's on Art News. So
that is awesome. That is awesome. Well, we could sit here and talk about trends forever. But this session, however, we're going to start to wrap up. Vicky, can you let everybody know, outside of being able to find you at Sanmar, where else can they find some of this research and these articles and this amazing trending news that you're putting out?
well, in September, I actually launched a blog called Trend Dependent. And the reason is because I work for Sanmar, and we sell mostly clothing in our particular part of the promo industry. And yet there's, like I was saying, the home industry, the gardening industry, the food industry. You know, these are all verticals that we make product for, but not the hard goods for them. So, but I'm always researching them, and I'm like, I need a place to put that stuff, to put that trend information. And then, like you say, as we talk, where can I find that? So go to trenddependent.com, just one D in the middle, Trend Dependent. And I have things in there that I have a whole article on Cottage Core with links so you can research it. I'm also on Instagram at Trend Dependent, Facebook, LinkedIn, and I also have a Pinterest that's called Trend Dependent, and that's where I put my research. So this article that I was just talking about from Art News, I found yesterday, I just pin it there, you know. So it's not in any order. I'm not going to claim it to be, but yeah, there's a Pinterest that's Trend Dependent, so you can look that up too.
Perfect. Perfect. That is so awesome. Vicky, thank you so much for doing this today.
Thank you. It was really fun.
Awesome. And I want to thank everybody else for watching. Make sure, yes, connection. Make sure that you check us out at the next Express Training Bites next Thursday. We'll see you guys soon.